Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of FlickFans. I'm here joined with my brother Brian today, and we're going to talk about what we want to see in the upcoming Matt Reeves Batman trilogy. Yep. And we have a couple things that we know about the movie. It's still pretty early in development. I think it's going to come out 2021, but what we know so far is that it's a trilogy. It's not going to be connected to any other franchises or characters. It's a more noir detective story. It won't be an origin, so Batman has already been around for a little bit. Catwoman, Penguin, Riddler, and Firefly have been confirmed as the main villains. There was a rumor that there will be 6, and I think it's been confirmed that Two-Face and the Mad Hatter have also joined the roster. I know, right?
Hatter. Hell yeah.
Yeah, they're bringing in some classic villains as well as a little lesser known for the main stream, I guess, which is really cool. Some other rumors is that there might be Robin or other members of the Bat family. And I think that's it for rumors. There's just been a lot of stuff going around.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome. I didn't know about the Mad Hatter, so that'll be fun. That'll be a good addition.
Yeah, so we can start off, I guess, by what we do want to see. I would love to see a very distinct Gotham. I feel like it's been lacking a little bit with the Nolan and the Snyder versions of Batman, where, I think especially for the Snyder movies, it wasn't a big focus, but Metropolis and Gotham really didn't feel super different. And I know you've said that you think, the Nolan movies are just downtown, real city USA over there. So like, I loved with the Tim Burton Batman and even the Schumacher ones to an extent. They were very distinct.
Yeah, I mean, with like, especially with the Nolan. What was the one with Bane?
It was the Dark Knight Rises.
Rises. Okay. That was literally just Wall Street. Like that was literally just like Lower Manhattan. Like it wasn't Gotham. It was literally Lower Manhattan. Like I really failed to see, especially in the Nolan movies, how they're not in New York City. Like
Yeah.
just straight up. Like it's not even like a Gotham based on New York City. Like straight shots of New York City.
No,
So I'm looking forward to like unique architecture and maybe more like the alleyways, like more close quarters buildings. The streets aren't so wide.
yeah.
Like because Batman is like jumping, Batman can't jump 30 feet like to a new building, you know what I mean? Like it,
Sure.
and there's no, it just, if you use, real architecture in a real city, you can't, design and manipulate the environment to like go with the movie.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it would be really cool to have these bits of, comic booky fantasy elements to it with a bit of realism, because with the noir detective kind of feel that they said that they're going for, I can see it going a bit more realistic. There's a great comic called Earth One that has a really good blend of fantasy and realism, where I think if they do something along that line, it could be really interesting as well as really distinct. You mentioned uh, the um, how he can hop between buildings and stuff, and I think uh, there shouldn't be a Batmobile in this first one, at least maybe down the road, but to have him using his grappling hook to jump from building to building, swinging off, and having that kind of classic Batman imagery with gargoyles and rooftops could be really interesting.
You also have this weird dynamic where it's like Batman's like, "Oh, okay, I need to go back to where I parked my car," and then, or he can have the button that just autopilot, Tesla autopilots the Batmobile to whatever Batman's location is. But like, it just, I think that's what in terms of realism, yeah, they shouldn't have a Batmobile in the first one, especially because it's like, he's a detective, like he's not rolling around in a Rolls Royce,
Yeah,
decked out.
it,
He's just on the street.
it'd be tough, I think, to have that stealth element that is very crucial for detectives, especially if they're trying to break into places, where if he's, rolling up with a jet engine in the back of his car just going, and he's like, they'll never hear me come in. So I
They'll,
think,
they'll never find me.
yeah, I think definitely for the detective element, there should be some stealth as well as just Batman in general.
Because you could totally have like the design of Arkham be, work out in Batman's favor in terms of jumping around. Like, when you use real New York City, you definitely need that Batmobile. There's no Bat subway trains that he can take, so you got to roll around in the car. But yeah, I mean, everyone's talking about, oh, the new Batmobile. Like, I've seen enough Batmobiles, to be honest with you. Like, there were some good ones like back in the day. I don't need to see any more. It's just a
Yeah,
car. Like, putting jet engines on the back of it got a little silly.
I think it'd be interesting, just something different. Let's scrap the Batmobile for maybe the first one at least, but let's have him get the Batboat. Let's have that back in the mix.
Yeah, bring
Back
back the Batboat for
in the
sure.
zeitgeist. So I know, well, I think it's ambitious to have six villains in one movie. I'm hoping, I think Riddler's gonna be the main villain, and I hope they kind of have Firefly, maybe a few other people working for the Riddler. So he's solving the riddles and stuff, but they show up to try to stop him, or they're part of that riddle, I guess, that leads him to, let's say, Catwoman. Then they kind of have a little back and forth or something like that. But I'd like to see some of these people as reoccurring villains throughout the trilogy. I liked in the Nolan movies how Scarecrow was in all of them, even though he wasn't very big in the other two. You still saw him at least once, I think. And
Yeah, I mean, especially like the Riddler. I think the Riddler was done really well in Gotham, the TV show. I really like how they had him. They really built up his character. Like before he became like the Riddler, the villain, you could see all those traits in him. So when he
mhm.
became a villain, it like, okay, that makes sense. Instead of, you have some characters where it's just like one day they wake up and they're like, I'm a supervillain now. Riddler had really good motivations and it felt realistic, and his personality, his character, it made sense that he wore the ridiculous, tie or whatever.
Mhm.
It didn't feel out of place or put in there just for fan service. So I'd like to see that kind of Riddler in this new movie. And also for Firefly, I feel like Firefly should run concurrently as a sort of anti-hero that
Mhm.
reappears in the movies because I feel like people give her character a lot more sympathy. Usually her character's treated with more sympathy than some other characters, although I don't know what direction they're going to take it.
Was Firefly a girl in Gotham?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm only familiar with Firefly from Arkham Origins, where it was a guy.
Wait, there's a guy Firefly? I didn't even know that. I just thought Firefly was a girl.
Oh, it could be cool to have the female Firefly, um,
Yeah.
just to, because I think it probably was started off as a male character, knowing the comic industry, but but that could be cool.
Will there
I
be romance between Batman and Catwoman? Will they include that?
I feel like I feel like they will. That's either in this one or some point throughout it. And I think to just go back to Riddler, I've seen art of James McAvoy and David Tennant as Riddler, but now that there's Mad Hatter, I feel like David Tennant could be a good Mad Hatter or Riddler.
Low key, I'm gonna be upset if Firefly is a guy.
So with all these villains, especially I think five of them are all men. So yeah, we could have female Firefly. Why not? I feel like a character like that. or really any character to a degree, where it it's not part of the Firefly character where it has to be a guy.
Right, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity to change, you know, the the race and gender of characters, to develop like a different story for them, like a different set of motivations and origin.
Sure.
And Hollywood really pushes diversity, but the thing is that people want whole characters, people want developed characters,
Definitely.
and it's just, and two, especially with God, I don't know what kind of crazy alternate universe Batman's supposed to take place in now recently, where it's like everyone's white, because in the animated series not everyone was, you know what I mean? It was a very diverse cast in the animated series, and that means it's a diverse set of stories and a diverse set of characters, and definitely think they should return to that.
Yeah, I mean, this could have just been some legal stuff, but in the descriptions, excuse me, for who they want as the villains, right? It's like Catwoman, blah 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 burglar, looking for female, I think they said like 20s or 30s, any ethnicity, and they said that for all of the villains, where it's like age range and then any ethnicity, and that could just be them kind of covering their butts, but it would be interesting, and I think really great in general for film,
I
and
mean, we had Halle Berry as Catwoman, so
she's almost 55, I think, and I swear to God, I thought she was like 40.
yeah, Halle Berry's aging well.
She is, but I would love to see Clayface at some point.
Yes, we need Clayface, and we need, not Sandman from Spider-Man type of look. It needs to be practical effects, and
Enhanced with some CG.
yeah, yeah, polish it up with some CG,
Yeah. I'm
but
thinking like a Jabba the Hutt-esque puppeteer base, uh practical like arms but with tubes inside at some point, so then real mud can get sprayed out and they sort of just clean up what they might have to. And then when Batman gets hit with real mud, it'll look real to the audience and our brains will go like, "Wow, how did they get a real mud monster in this movie?" So I think that would be great. I think the um, special effects are there. I feel like the practical effects have been there for a long time, where you can make a good looking big monster.
I mean, they could take literal clay and then just keep piling it on him for each take, and because like with Alien, they covered the alien puppets in KY jelly
Oh
to make them
yeah.
that slimy feel. So just keep covering Clayface in dirt and mud and clay.
You have a PA at one of those like spinning pottery wheels, just making sure it's wet and loose and just like chucking it at him. Oh, what a great job that would be.
Yeah, I mean that would be,
You're
the actors
the
just getting
mud
pelted.
thrower. It's like, I'm the mud thrower.
I mean, I think Clayface. I feel like they should keep him in the sewers exclusively, because I feel like Clayface is one of those Batman villains where he borders too much on the supernatural,
Yeah.
and I think that, you know Clayface could be very mysterious, and evade the public eye
Mhm.
more than other villains.
Yeah, that could also be a good workaround for maybe not seeing a giant, 10-foot tall clay monster. They can scale them down. It would be kind of easier for the practical effects, and they keep it in line where then they don't have to build a gigantic creature. They can keep them a little bigger than a person, but
You know how Batman looked, like with the fear gas, the person, like black Batman, like what was it, the black ooze type of
oh yeah, yeah.
what movie was that?
I think that was Batman Begins.
Oh, okay, so that Batman is so scary. That's how they should make Clayface kind of look, I
Ooh.
feel like. They should give him, and it's all zoom in on his face. Like all the shots of him are zoom. You never actually see like
Oh, okay. That could be interesting. And it would be an interesting character too to keep him secluded where there becomes like a myth about him, right? Kids are like, "Don't go in the sewer. There's a mud monster in there." Then I feel like if Batman is has been Batman for a little bit, but there's always the myths, right? Of like, oh, is he real and da da da. So I feel like if they do that, there could be an interesting relationship and dynamic between the two, where one hides in the shadows, right? One hides in the sewer. Both have differing perceptions on them. There could be, a villain and a hero, but they could also have something, a common ground.
because Clayface is scary, bro.
Yeah.
Clayface is scary,
Hmm.
and if they make him not scary, I'm gonna be upset.
Yeah. What other villains would you want to see them tackle?
The villain I want most is Poison Ivy.
I
After
talked
Uma
about that.
Thurman's killer performance, I want Poison Ivy to come back because she is a character that blends in with regular society.
Sure, yeah.
And, Batman's doing his detective stuff, so I feel like we need villains to kind of blend in more so it's more of a cat and mouse game instead of it's like, oh, I'm looking for the man with half his face melted off. It's like, oh, he went that way.
Haven't seen him. Really? Like you don't remember that? Yeah, that makes sense. What about the mix of Bruce Wayne and Batman?
How do you mean?
I guess, I feel like that was one thing I did like about the Snyder movies was I feel like it was an equal-ish distribution of
Oh,
saw
I see what
as
you're
Bruce
saying.
Wayne saw in Batman, but also with that scene when he's at the party where he has to sneak off and gets all of the files on the future Justice League members, where he kind of had to do a little sleuthing.
Bruce Wayne can't be a billionaire in this movie. He can't. He needs to be. This is when he's starting out. He has only like 3 mil. You know what I mean? It can't. It
Okay.
can't be him being a billionaire because everyone's gonna recognize him. He won't be able to do any detective work at all as Bruce Wayne. He needs to be low key.
You know what though? He's always been a billionaire, and that definitely I feel like even millionaires get a big level of notoriety, but scaling it back a little bit where
Like Wayne Enterprises is still in shambles or
okay.
something
Yeah.
because we have this like ridiculous like especially in the Nolan movies. I know I'm hating on the Nolan movies too much, but it's like, oh, you're a billionaire, so I just built you a magic bat tank, and it's like, okay, that's it doesn't feel anything good. It doesn't feel like it has an impact because Lucius just snaps his fingers and there's a bat tank.
Yeah, I definitely want to see him and Alfred make the stuff, make the gadgets. I want Batman to be able to have flex his little science skills where he would create a smoke bomb. In the animated series, we've seen him, with vials and tubes when there's been scarecrow poisoning or Joker poisonings. He has created the things to fight that, and I do want to see that. And I think that's definitely an easier way to explain why there isn't a Batmobile because yeah, he's learned a lot about different fighting and all this other stuff, but like let's make it realistic where they aren't mechanical geniuses who can build these souped up crazy tank cars.
Because we definitely need more Bruce Wayne because I feel like our only hint at motivation is just like, oh, my parents died, and it's like we see that in every single movie,
Mhm.
and it's not, it's a cheap motivation. It's like a canned motivation. It doesn't tell us anything else about like we need to see Bruce Wayne actually living his life and how his parents dying affects him and like an actual look into his life rather than just doing this little setup at the beginning and saying, okay, now here's Batman.
But don't get me wrong, Batmobile's very, very cool. We've seen it in just about all the movies though, and again for the tone they're going for, I think leaving it out, at least for the first one, would be
Yeah,
beneficial.
yeah. I mean, we could, get in the bat plane, the bat boat.
Hmm.
Now with the inclusion of Firefly, Batman can steal Firefly's jetpack.
Dude, that would
And then
make
just
the
swipe it from him and then be like, yes, this is mine now, and just fly around as just like literally like Batman, just fly around stealing Firefly's jetpack. It's hidden under his cape and everything.
that would be great though. That seems like it would be so imaginative, right? Where it's like, well, okay, he's gotta, maybe he has to cover a lot of ground, but he still has to be kind of stealthy about it and keep to the shadows and the rooftops. How is he gonna do that? He's gonna fly around with a small little jetpack. Like that makes perfect sense, I think. And it
He,
does create that moment. In the first Tim Burton movie, in the Batplane, he goes over the moon, and it's like his symbol. Like I feel like they could do something like that where someone sees him fly by him and it scares them, right? And it creates that myth and that perception that it's like he's otherworldly because he can fly.
he throws his smoke bomb, smoke grenades, and just zoom, just right up through it.
That would be awesome. And that would be a cool way to show how he can just like exit a room so fast.
Although I mean, that would end up in the second movie, right? Because if we're introducing Firefly in the first one, maybe that's how it ends. The first movie can end and it's like I have the jetpack now, and then the cuts. Kind of like how the first Matrix movie ends with Neo flying.
Oh yeah.
What about including the ventriloquist?
I I'm not familiar with the Vin. Oh wait, yeah, yeah,
I'm
him.
literally on Google, like I'm literally looking at Batman villains.
Oh, no, I remember the ventriloquist. That would be also interesting because with the Penguin, they're definitely inserting, uh, and I guess Catwoman too, right? They're just street level, more or less, mob, criminal. Catwoman's not in the mob, but whatever. You know what I mean? Um, where they aren't evil supervillains. That could be interesting too. That could be definitely cool. And Jim Gordon is inevitable in this movie or this series. How would you want them to tackle Jim Gordon?
That's tough because I'm so biased because the most recent Batman stuff I've seen is the Gotham TV show.
Hmm.
Um, I like him in the TV show. It was done well, but I would definitely want a different Jim Gordon. He's such a goody two shoes, and even when it's like this like character building moment when he like crosses the line, it ends up being really weak
Oh,
and not impact. I think Jim Gordon really needs to duke it out with Batman, not physically, but Jim Gordon has to basically like lose his job as a police officer because he's so obsessed with tracking down Batman. You know, I,
yeah.
because we can't have all of Gotham PD looking for Batman. It's just that whole thing with like, oh, Batman goes to war with all of Gotham PD. It's dumb. Like he would get arrested, like probably. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's sort of like Gotham police is like, oh, who cares about some person in a bat costume and tights, and
Yeah.
only Jim Gordon, really obsessed. It's like really looking into it. He has the on his walls at home. He has pictures with the string and the pins. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And have in the first movie just not have them interact, but just have like this parallel storyline with Jim Gordon tracking down Batman.
That would be cool because I feel like it's his character, and it's always the situation where Jim Gordon and Batman are kind of on the two different sides of trying to do the same thing. And Jim Gordon, he plays by the rules. He's the goody two shoes kind of guy, which makes sense because he's a cop, obviously. But I think you can still do that element of his character, but have him just take it a little too far and to show a little bit of a darker side to him. And
Yeah, I definitely want to see a Jim Gordon that, I don't know, maybe early in his career, the story could be put at, and maybe he can be temporarily be apart from Gotham PD on some crusade, but definitely I really think that a problem with a lot of the movies is that they have all of these characters and all of these villains, and they all have to interact with Batman at this one point. And
Right.
so to have characters have their own storylines apart from Batman, I think would be really good for the series.
Definitely. And I'm a little worried about Batman fatigue and a little bit of superhero fatigue in general. So I think if they do these different ideas and just take these characters and keep what makes the characters, right? Like obviously Jim Gordon can go a little too far, but he should still be a good person. He should still
Yes, yeah.
be that like Batman is, there's the idea that Batman creates some of the villains, right? Inadvertently. So maybe he believes that and he believes like this is someone who is creating more harm than good. He needs to be stopped. I need to bring him down because he believes that that's right. But just to take things in these little different avenues and turns could be very, very beneficial for making it stand out.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the greatest challenge of this movie series is standing out because you're trying to stand out from like a lot of movies.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And in a TV show that includes a lot of villains,
Yeah.
and they need to do. I'm not saying to be too risky with anything. I think that's the problem is that people really tried to be like risky and ended up flopping a lot of stuff. But it needs to be distinct and in a new direction. They
Yes.
they can piggyback off of some of the audience's knowledge, but not
Yeah.
the character development or the scenery. The
Hmm.
set, yeah.
And I think one of the easy ways, especially for Batman, to make it distinct, and I think that's kind of what the Snyder movies were going for, where we'll throw in a lot of heroes that a lot of people know. We'll just sort of jumpstart, we'll rush having Flash, Wonder Woman, all the Justice League members. And I think it's easy to fall into that, right? Where it's like, oh, well, how do we make this movie different? I don't, we'll put in Tim Drake Robin or Batgirl or something, like just to make it instantly different. But I feel like definitely have members of the Bat family because that creates just a whole different dynamic um, for the character. I think especially Tim Drake would be an interesting one just because I think for the most part in comics his parents or at least his dad is still alive, so he has to hide being that from his family and everything.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the animated series did it best in terms of having, you know, that all characters are doing things while you're watching Batman. Like, you know, they have their own lives and they're running around. That was the best part of the villains is that, you know, Batman's fighting one particular villain, but you know that like eight other ones are wrecking stuff somewhere else.
Yeah, they're doing something.
So you could introduce all these villains and the Bat family in the first one, and it doesn't need to be, oh, Batman has to like talk with each and every one of them one on one. Like you can introduce them and show that, you know, they're up to stuff.
Hmm. Definitely including Batgirl with our hypothetical version of Jim Gordon could be very, very interesting and a great source of tension and drama. Just
Oh,
imagine though, like if he's so hell bent, right, on taking him down, right, or whatever, and then his daughter becomes part of his team.
a
Oh, that
secret Batman fangirl.
yeah, that would be amazing. And then definitely with I like what you were saying about introducing them, but maybe they're not integral. And because Batman is usually a loner for the most part, even with sidekicks, right? He'll be like, "No, I'll do this. You just sit here." So it'd be a practical character reason for, let's say Tim Drake's there, some Robin. They're like, "All right, I'll join you." He's like, "No, just I don't want you. I'll do it. It's too dangerous, whatever." Um, but I would really love to see the dynamic of a Batman and Robin because I don't want the Batman to be depressed and just so beaten down where he needs someone to kind of cheer him up and bring a little spark back into his life. But I would definitely want to
The
see.
Batcave is full of dirty dishes, and there's like takeout boxes all over the Batcave. He's depressed. He's just sitting there.
But I do want to see a version that's been at it for, 3 to 5 years and he's still new to it and he's just realizing that maybe it wasn't going exactly how he planned. Just like a person, right? They set out to like, get a new job and they're like, this isn't really what I thought. So elements of that where he's a little beaten down and either he has Robin from the beginning and they're still working on their relationship, or maybe he comes in at some point in the movie, but definitely to have someone cheer him up and bring a different uh, viewpoint that he was having would be a cool arc.
Definitely, and also you could have Robin could have a different relationship with certain villains than Batman, so you could add a complexity to add a different complexity to that.
What do you mean by that, though? More of a, yeah, I wouldn't imagine Robin being friends with any of them, but what do you mean?
Not friends, but you know, just that maybe at sometimes Batman and Robin have to do separate things.
I'd
Like
like to
they're
see that.
two bank robberies across town. Like Batman goes one way, Robin goes another way.
Oh, I'm sorry. I totally understand what you're saying then. I mean, granted, he's a kid, right? I feel like he definitely would have a different dynamic where he may not be taken as seriously or something. And that would be also very good to piggyback off your idea of having these characters, but sometimes they don't always, line up with Batman like that, where Robin, Batgirl, whoever it might be, does his or her own thing, and that it just fleshes out their character a little bit because they have alone time. And same with Batman, where let's say Robin's already in these movies as like a teenager or something. So the first scene of them doing some hero stuff, they're together, and then later on in the movie they have to split off, and you see them working together and separately. Could be pretty cool. And any closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
I think my closing thought is that people are hating on Robin because of the movie Batman and Robin, and it's totally uncalled for and false, and it's heresy, and that, we need to see another bromance, Batman and Robin punching everybody, hanging out, eating pizza at Wayne Manor, kind of a thing. You know what I mean? Like waking up in the same bed together, like that one comic. just, just
Yeah.
fully include Robin. We can't have the Batman be like, especially too. You know what? Some detective work. Maybe that's what Robin does best is some detective work,
Tim
because
Drake is
Batman can't go everywhere. So yeah, definitely include Robin. That's my closing thoughts. Include Robin.
yeah. I closing thoughts. I agree. I think the Tim Drake Robin would be the best for this version because he's the Robin with the best detective skills out of all of them, so I think that would make the most amount of sense. And I'm looking forward to this, even though there is a lot of hearsay and rumors. I'm really hoping that it's something good.
Yeah, I mean the thing is that people are like, oh, it's Robert Patterson, blah 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 blah. It's gonna be bad, and it's like, listen, you know, sometimes, and he's done good roles. He's done serious roles. Like he's not just some kind of kitty vampire.
Yeah, totally.
And so I'm welcoming this because they ruined Batman v Superman for me. I was so hyped for it, they ruined it for me.
I
So
was so excited.
nothing but positive vibes for this upcoming Batman movie.
I'm excited to hear about some future casting announcements. It's easy to be like, oh, that person. People forget though. People were losing their minds when Heath Ledger was cast as the Joker. Everyone said this is going to be the worst Batman movie ever made. He's so wrong, blah blah. And now everybody loves him. So I would just keep
R.I.P.
R.I.P. I would just keep that in mind for any future casting, just in any movie really, but especially for this one because it is such a big beloved character. So thank you guys for watching. If you have any thoughts on what you want to see in the upcoming Batman movies, leave a comment.
Smash that like button, subscribe, hit the bell. Authentic. Yeah.
Oh, boys. Yep, and make sure to share with your friends, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.